Alright, 8th graders, how you doing? It's Mr.Berardo. Behind me is a picture of the Japanese signing an unconditional surrender aboard the USS Missouri. We are going to be talking, this is pretty much the end of the war. And we're going to be going on from there and starting to talk about different things that happened during the war. That was more or less on the civilian side, not really the military side. And that's kind of like, it's kind of the way I like to do it. It's just an easier way to wrap your head around it, but understand that all the things we're going to be talking about happened during World War II. It didn't happen after, it didn't happen, well, some of it happened a little bit before, but it happened in the midst of what was going on during World War II. Assignments, some of you guys, you're going to get credit for being engaged, but you're getting zeros on assignments because you're writing a sentence for 8 questions and going, yeah, I'm done, and you don't answer like 7 of the 8 questions, or 8 of the 9 questions you just don't answer. But like I said, this is the signing of the unconditional surrender by the Japanese during World War II aboard the USS Missouri. The war is over. August 14th, 1945 is called VJ Day, and that means victory for Japan. What we see is that this is the deadliest war in human history. It's killing between an estimated 30 and 60 million people, which is absolutely mind-boggling. That would be about a tenth of the population of the United States, plus, or 10 to 20% of the United States population. Germany is virtually destroyed. I'm not going to say virtually. Germany is destroyed. In some of the videos I've shown you, see flyovers of what the planes are flying over, and there's really nothing but just the outside stone pieces of buildings. The inside, there's nothing left. Bombs have just basically destroyed that. Millions of people throughout Europe are homeless. They just don't have any place to go. They are wandering around, and we have other stuff that we have to deal with. Just to give you an idea, talking about who is dying and who's killed, the Soviets got a lot killed. All right, they had a lot of civilian deaths. The light blue is total deaths. The population between 1945 and 1939. We see a little bit more happening later on. China and the United States, we're pretty small. We don't have a lot, but I just wanted to give you an idea of who was getting killed and who was going to have the biggest say in what goes on after the war. Is going to be the United States, United Kingdom, France, China, and Russia are really going to have a say in what happens with the majority of the people. If you look at the big pie chart, Allied civilians, 58% of the dead were there. Allied military is 25%. So the Allies took a much bigger beating when you're talking about the number of deaths and people that were injured. It's really terrible. We take about 70 or 83%, and the Axis takes about 17%. So it's really not. It's a huge destructive loss for the Germans, but people-wise, it's not as bad. Some of the things that they've done, the Germans are going to have to pay for and really renounce and really try and figure out what's going to happen, because people knew about it. Was something called the Holocaust. You will be watching a couple videos on the Holocaust tomorrow on Wednesday, and your next lesson is going to be on the Holocaust as well. But this is pretty much the slaughter of about millions of people, somewhere around 11 to 12 million people. It's an outrageously high number. Over almost half of the entire population that was killed during the Holocaust were Jewish people that lived in Europe. 5 million others were killed. Those were communists, handicapped people, political prisoners, gypsies, homosexuals, and pretty much anyone else that spoke out against what the Nazis were doing, especially when they were the occupying party or the occupying group during the war. A lot of deaths. It was a very horrible time. In a sense, what's going to happen is, especially in Poland, where it really started. It really kind of started to go into full swing. Jews are going to be rounded up. They're going to be pushed into ghettos. Pretty much, they're going to wall up in Warsaw. They're going to wall up about a 3-block area, and they're going to put a couple 100,000 people living in there. So imagine the entire population of the city of Yonkers. Living in Ridge Hill. If that would give you an idea, living in an area that big is really not so super huge, but just imagine what would be going on through there. Conditions are really harsh. People are starving. People are dying in the streets. You would drag out your dead from the apartments that you were sharing with numerous families and just leave them on the sidewalk, and hopefully somebody would come and clean them up so you wouldn't get other diseases that were going around. But this is the kind of conditions that they were living in. They were forced to wear a red star. They were forced to carry their paper, a red star, a yellow star. They basically said Juden on it. That means Jewish in German. They were. It was a very difficult life. It was a very difficult life, to say the least, and that's not giving it enough credit as I say it. But you would have to carry your paperwork everywhere you went to show who you are, what you did, where you were going, what job you were doing, all sorts of stuff like that. Eventually, these ghettos will be liquidated, which basically means the Nazis will go in and they will take whomever, whenever, however, and they will ship them off to concentration camps. After the ghettos were liquidated, they were sent to concentration camps, where Arbach macht frei basically says, you're going to have to look that up tonight for homework. That's going to be it. This is Auschwitz. This is the entrance to Auschwitz right here. Okay? This sign was put up in front of many different concentration camps. It's very deceitful, and you'll understand why you see it when you see it, or why it is when you see it. You can see all the railroad lines coming in. Auschwitz was a huge, huge death camp. For the most part, 99% of the people that went to Auschwitz, or a good number in the 90 percentiles, were just exterminated. They were just killed. This was not some place where you really generally went to work and to survive. At some point, you were going to be executed, and that was the goal of Auschwitz. The people that were there, that were living there, for the most part, were there to help the Nazis out as part of their job, and that's what they kind of had to do in order to survive, not because they wanted to help the Nazis, because they were forced to, and if they didn't, they would be executed. Okay? And this is the last one we're going to do for today. There's a whole bunch of different ones out there. These, the ones that you can't really make them out, though, because it's really difficult to make it anyway, but they're skull and crossbones. These are the death camps. Sobibor was one, Madnek, Treblinka. I just saw something really interesting on a video, a series on Netflix about a guy, the person, they called him Ivan the Butcher. It was a documentary. He lived in the United States, and they thought that they convicted him of it, being a guard in Sobibor and Treblinka, and they extradited him and put him on trial and all sorts of stuff, and it was a really interesting thing to watch. But like I said, most of these camps are not located in Germany. The overwhelming majority are in captured Poland. Not all of them were death camps. They were these different ones. They were slave labor camps. They produced war materials, or they built things specifically for the Nazi Party. They didn't specifically get killed there, but they didn't specifically treat them well either. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this as I find more information to give to you in the next couple of days. But this is what we're seeing with the introduction to the Holocaust. You're going to see a lot of different stuff, and you're going to see people that deny the Holocaust. It's impossible to. There are many different things you can look up to see Auschwitz, and you can see different things in Treblinka, and it's a mess. It's a mess. Arguably the most horrific time period since the Roman Empire, when people are doing horrible things to each other. So a couple videos for you to watch, a couple questions for you to answer, and make sure you're answering with complete sentences. Make sure you are not starting off with it, he, she, they, because, cause. I want subjects and predicates. You know how to do it. If you're not going to do it that way, you will receive a 0 for the assignment. You will not get credit. I hope all is well, and we should be finishing up with the World War II segment of this by next week. So I'm going to start thinking about what I'm going to do for you to give you guys an assessment for that. Work hard, and I will see you next week.